How are you? Let's talk about buffering. Buffering, especially on operating system, but not just in that. You can also talk about buffering, for example, on YouTube. But the idea is the same idea. You have a buffer. You have something that can store information between the producer and consumer. Let it be the CPU versus the printer, such that when one party produce something faster that the consumer can take, so the buffer can hold that information such that it can slow down like the data transfer and maintain consuming from the consumer data and let the consume from the producer data and let the consumer take the data as slow as he needs or in the form that he needs. For example, if the producer produces blocks but the consumer wants something that is in characters one by one, so the buffer takes the information and gives the consumer what he wants. He takes what the producer gives, and gives the consumer what he wants. Especially again, the idea of the buffer is to hold information if the producer is too fast making the information, the data, the buffer takes the data, hold it, and give the consumer in the rate he wants. So let's see an animation, an example of this. So here's the producer, he'll produce data, this is the buffer, he can hold information until that size, this is the consumer. What happens if the buffer becomes full? So there are some ways to deal with it. Let's say block, I mean when the buffer is full, so the buffer tells the producer, hold on a minute, bro, you need to calm down with it. I'm too full, wait. But the buffer, if it wasn't there, so the consumer couldn't help, for example, the rate of the information, the data that the producer would produce. So something problematic here. So let's see an animation of this. You can see the producer produces data, the buffer can hold it and gives the consumer in the rate he wants, much slower than what the producer produces. This is the idea of the buffer. For example, on a YouTube video, your computer hold some of the information from the video such that if there are, for example, internet interruptions, the video won't stop and lag, but the computer has some buffer and it will give you some data until the internet will resume working. And by that, will make the video much, much more smoother in working. So the buffer just hold temporarily some data until the consumer can take it. In the meantime, getting more data from the producer because, for example, he can produce much faster data that the consumer can consume. Let it be a video such that your internet or whatever can produce a lot of the video, but you consume it second by second. So for that time, your buffer just holds some of the information of the video that you are going to see. And again, if there are internet interruptions or something like this, he can give in the data he holds until the internet resume. Or if the, I don't know, your computer sends something to the printer much faster than what the printer can print. So in the meantime, the buffer can take the information from the computer until the printer print it in its own rate. So this is the idea of this temporary holding data structure, the buffer. Thank you very much. This is it about the buffer in the realm of operating system, but it a little bit go beyond that. This is the idea of the buffer, and that's it.